Pete Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and famous boy detective. First things first, a lot of people are asking, how do you pronounce this guy's name? It's pronounced Pete, okay? It's like peaches, but you just stop, all right? Pete, that's it. Oh, and as for his last name, we're still figuring that one out.
Pete Buttigieg.
South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I always say his name wrong. Buttigieg.
Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Peter Buttigieg, the mayor of Indianapolis.
Best way to pronounce your last name?
Buttigieg, but around South Bend they just call me Mayor Pete, and that's fine with me.
Oh, thank God, Mayor Pete. We'll take Mayor Pete. We'll take Mayor Pete. Yeah, because people were really struggling with this one. It's not Buttigieg, it's not Buttigieg, and it's definitely not Buttigieg. But now that we're on the same page on how to say his name, well, what has he done?
For a guy who's only 37, Pete Buttigieg boasts an impressive resume. First elected mayor of his hometown at age 29. A Harvard-educated Rhodes Scholar, as well as a lieutenant in the Navy Reserve.
Took an unpaid 7-month leave during his mayoral term for a deployment to Afghanistan.
Not only the first openly gay presidential candidate, he's also a newlywed.
Would be a president of firsts, the first to be elected in his 30s, the first millennial, the first openly gay commander-in-chief, and the first mayor.
This is the only chance you'll ever get to vote for a Maltese-American left-handed Episcopalian gay war veteran Mayor Millennium.
Okay, wait. Maltese-American? Are you guys telling me this guy's pot little dog? Because if that's true, he is gonna win every white person's vote in this country. White people love them little ass dogs. Love them! But seriously though, I can see why people are impressed by Buttigieg, right? He has such a unique bio. He's a veteran, a Harvard graduate, and a Rhodes Scholar who's openly gay and also so young that if he served 2 terms as president, when he came out, he would still only be 46. Yeah, plus, he's a concert pianist and speaks 7 languages, including Norwegian, which he learned just so that he could read Norwegian books. Compare that to America's current president, who has read 0 books and is fluent in 0 languages. Now, if you're watching this going, Trevor, why are you only showing us the positive things about Pete Buttigieg? Because that's all we could find, all right? No, I'm being serious. There's no dirt on this guy, like nothing. Usually candidates have some skeletons somewhere, but even his skeletons are singing his praises. He gave me calcium for my bones. The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and host of Nathan For You, he did a Fox town hall on Sunday, and he showed that visiting Fox doesn't have to mean that you endorse them.
You know, a lot of folks in my party were critical of me for even doing this with Fox News. I mean, when you got Tucker Carlson saying that immigrants make America dirty, when you've got Laura Ingraham comparing detention centers with children in cages to summer camps, then there is a reason why anybody has to swallow hard and think twice before participating in this media ecosystem. But I also believe that there are a lot of Americans who my party can't blame if they are ignoring our message, because they will never hear it if we don't go on and talk about it. I hope you'll join me in making sure that that next era is better than any that we've had so far.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you. Wow, a standing ovation.
Wow. Standing ovation. Pete Buttigieg went on Fox News, trashed their most popular anchors, and then got a standing ovation at the end. That is amazing. That is amazing. Because if someone came to your house and told you how ugly your kids were, you'd probably be like, get the hell out of here. You wouldn't be like, someone had to say it. You got a big ass head, Billy. You got a big ass head. Someone had to say it. And it wasn't just the audience. Some reporters on Fox News actually credited Buttigieg for coming onto their network. But the kids with the big ass heads, they weren't as happy.
Mayor Pete, who desperately needs a Buttigieg. Now, when he wasn't pushing for tax increases or lobbing lame, cheap shots, he was trying to pass off political pablum as some type of high-minded oratory. Maybe we should call him Pope Pete. Because don't you love how because he attends church, we're supposed to treat him as the be-all and end-all moral authority or the arbiter of who is and who is not operating in good faith.
Okay. I get that Laura Ingraham is trying to diss Pete, but I don't know if she achieved that by calling him Pope. People like the Pope. It's not a great diss. It's like going, this guy Steve is always walking around being a dick to everyone. Let's call him Big Dick Steve. That'll show him. Then everyone will know what a big throbbing dick he has. Is. Pete Buttigieg, Democratic candidate, mayor of South Bend, and real-life boss baby. Over the weekend, he did an interview with Axios on HBO, and one thing he said took the reporter a little by surprise.
If you were to win the nomination, they'll say you're too young, too liberal, too gay to be commander-in-chief. You are young, you are liberal, you are gay. How will you respond?
People will elect the person who will make the best president. And we have had excellent presidents who have been young. We have had excellent presidents who have been liberal. I would imagine we've probably had excellent presidents who were gay. We just didn't know which ones.
You believe that we've had a gay commander-in-chief?
I mean, statistically, it's almost certain.
And in your reading of history, do you believe you know who they were?
My gaydar doesn't even work that well in the present, let alone retroactively.
Oh, man. That was such a great response. I love how the journalist was like, It's so funny that the journalist thinks because Buttigieg is gay, he automatically knows who else is gay. Like, gay people can even recognize each other across time. Yeah? It's the same way when I tell people I'm from Africa, some people are like, oh my God, you're from Africa. Do you know Mufasa? I'm like, no, you idiots. We went to different high schools. Come on. Also, Buttigieg is a better man than me. Because you realize he could have said any president is gay, and that guy would have believed him. Yeah, he could have been like, well, Thomas Jefferson was totally gay. The guy would be like, what? How can you tell? I'd be like, oh, I can tell. Pete Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and kid who always asks for more homework, is getting attention for what he's saying in his ads.
Pete Buttigieg has a new kind of position or an ad this weekend that was airing in Iowa about education. Listen.
I believe we should move to make college affordable for everybody. There are some voices saying, well, that doesn't count unless you go even further, unless it's free even for the kids of millionaires. But I only want to make promises that we can keep.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Bernie Sanders supporter, slamming the new Iowa frontrunner, tweeting, "This is a GOP talking point used to dismantle public systems, and it's sad to see a Dem candidate adopt it."
Ooh, Pete, you in trouble. This is an interesting one. Pete Buttigieg says that he supports free public college, but it shouldn't apply to rich people's kids. And in response, rich people said, what the is a public college? Is that like a public toilet? I think I've heard of those. No, but jokes aside, this ad is getting a lot of backlash, right? Because Buttigieg has basically drawn criticism from the progressive wing of his party because they argue if the government provides a service, the service should be available to all of its citizens. Right? It's the same way a public library doesn't ask how rich you are before they let you in to masturbate. It's a public library. Everyone can masturbate. That's what it's there for. Now, despite the backlash, Buttigieg's campaign is still steadily on the rise. The major change from the last debate is the rise of Pete Buttigieg, right? Mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and the only adult Michael Jackson would be into. Over the past few weeks, he has surged from the middle of the pack to take the lead in Iowa and New Hampshire. So now, between Buttigieg, Biden, Warren, and Bernie, this has become a four-way race. And if you include Cory Booker, it's still a four-way race. So, with Buttigieg rising in the polls, tonight the moderators asked him something a lot of people are wondering. Why should a teenage mayor from South Bend, Indiana, become president of the United States?
Mayor Buttigieg, let's talk about your record as a candidate. Why should Democrats take the risk of betting on you?
In order to defeat this president, we need somebody who can go toe-to-toe, who actually comes from the kinds of communities that he's been appealing to. I don't talk a big game about helping the working class while helicoptering between golf courses with my name on them. I don't even golf. As a matter of fact, I never thought I'd be on a Forbes magazine list, but they did one of all the candidates by wealth, and I am literally the least wealthy person on this stage.
Yeah, Pete Buttigieg may be the poorest person on that stage, but Bernie was like, yes, but I look the poorest. And that should count for something. You know, it's actually funny how running for president is the only time people brag about how much money they don't have. Right? It's like they're all bizarro rappers, you know? Started from the bottom, never left. Started from the bottom, and my whole team is in the exact same place because there's been no upward mobility for the last 30, 40 years in this country. Why do you think your candidacy is catching on like wildfire?
I think it's actually all the same reasons that made my candidacy kind of unlikely. The fact that I'm a mayor at a time when people are frustrated with Washington and looking for different sources of leadership.
Right.
The fact that I'm from the industrial Midwest, which is a place that Democrats have sometimes struggled to connect with. And the fact that I'm from a new generation, which I think raised some eyebrows early on. But I think it's one of the reasons why it makes sense to do this. And I think all of those things that we thought might be constraints when we got into it have actually help demonstrate that I'm not like the others and I represent something different.
I think you're not like anybody, to be honest. No, because when you look at like your resume and your story, it genuinely seems like you were created in a lab specifically to run. No, I mean, listen to this. This is who Mayor Pete is, just a little bit. I mean, listen to this. You have someone who is a Rhodes Scholar, a war veteran, gay and religious, speaks multiple languages, and you're from the heartland. You also have executive experience. Like, what's the major scandal? You should just tell us now. There's gonna be, like, where are the bodies? Are they in the basement? Are they?
No bodies.
No bodies. Dude, like, is that just you? Is that how you've lived your life, and then that happened to coincide with the presidential campaign, or is this what you've cultivated in your life?
No, I mean, most of the turns in my life came as something of a surprise. I mean, even when I was interested in politics as a student, I never would have guessed that local government would have been where I found a lot of meaning.
Right.
I'm not sure I would have guessed that moving home to South Bend, Indiana, would have been how I would really find purpose and kind of make my fortunes. Not a financial fortune, but that my kind of professional life would be so fulfilling.
Right.
I think, so much of this is the element of surprise. I mean, 5 or 10 years ago, you would not have said, if we're going to cook up the ideal presidential candidate, let's have a 30-something gay mayor from the Midwest, right?
It's almost like you come about at a time when society is at a place.
Yeah, I mean, at no other time in the last 200 years, right, would somebody like me have fit a presidential campaign. But we're living in this moment, maybe the only moment for the last 200 or the next 200 years. But I think when you're deciding whether to run for any office, what you got to do is you look at the moment, you look at the constituency, the district or the city or the country or whatever office you're running for. Say, what does it call for in this moment? And to my surprise, too, at first, I realized that this is a moment that just might call for somebody like me.
More recently, you've been thrust into the news in and around issues regarding voters who are black. People have said, Mayor Pete, it feels like you have a blind spot when it comes to black voters in America. Whether it be the fact that in South Bend, when South Bend's economy rose up, black people didn't rise up as much. They stayed in poverty. You've had issues in and around conversations around the black police chief. What do you think you're going to do, or how are you going to appeal to black voters?
Well, I think a lot of it's the importance of outreach. So there are people who will find their way to you, and those are your core supporters. And then there are the people who will never hear from you unless you reach out to them. This was important for me back home, too. Not everybody knows that South Bend is a racially diverse city. We're about 45% non-white. As you mentioned, we had some very painful issues, especially in my first days and months as mayor, around race and policing, around neighborhoods. We have a lot of racial inequality in our city, not because we want to, but it's shown me that good intentions are not enough. You have to have intention around your policies. And we're working on everything back in South Bend, from black entrepreneurship to investing in historically disinvested neighborhoods. I think the same thing has to happen at the national level. Look, these racial inequities didn't just happen. They're not an accident. They're in many cases the consequence of racist policies, which means we have to have not just non-racist policies, but anti-racist policies if we're ever going to see these things equalize in our lifetime. And I may not be able to convince every voter out there to be for me. But at the very least, I need to make sure that every voter out there knows that I'm for them.